I cannot talk and click a mouse. There we go. And Pasquale, it's Recchia. His last name is not iPhone. Just want to clear that up. So.
Sorry, my computer is not working properly for my Zoom.
I can change it manually. It's all good, man.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just giving
good.
you a hard time.
Yeah.
So some of you guys know our partners on the call, some not. I also know that if you've experienced any sliver of success in real estate, you're used to being harassed by vendors, and that's not going to happen. These people are here to add value. Nothing, as much as people love our platform, I'm just very transparent about this. Nothing what I do, I cannot do anything like without Adam and Joel. And obviously it is a collective effort, but I can't do it. So I mean, I think most everybody on this call has been featured in some capacity or event attendance. I can't do it. So they are not here today really to sell themselves, but just to be, a genuine resource. I'm sure they'd be glad to connect with you after if they can help in any way possible. But they're experiencing the same obstacles as you are in their industry. So I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves super briefly, and then we'll hop in. So Adam, you were on first. I'll have you go, and then Joel, and then we'll kick it off. Adam, go ahead, my man.
Sure. Adam Gurney, Gurney Law Group, and I've been working in the industry since 2012. Was that it?
That was beautiful.
I think that was it.
Go ahead, Joel.
Andy, I thought it was just us two. You told me to come on to a Zoom video. I didn't know there was people here. I thought it was just me and you, man. Joel Schaub, Vice President of Lending for Guaranteed Rate to do the mortgage business now for the last 17 years. And I'm just going to talk about branding and marketing and show you guys how we'll do almost $200 million of mortgages in a 12-month period. And we're just happy to be here. I'm here to listen.
Cool, man. No, I appreciate it. And so this is sort of the part where I shut up. I have found you're not going to hear me talk a lot from here on out. Now, obviously, if there's a 27-second, awkward pause, I will jump in with some conversation starters, but with realtors. And you guys all have very great different personalities. That never seems to be a problem on these. So I will open it up kind of just with an open-ended question. And I would love to hear, and this is for anybody, I kind of want the realtors to sort of chime in first, but what have you seen over the last 6 months as far as new strategies that you've implemented? And sort of what I'm looking for is specifically like what seems to be working, not working. Are there any nuances that you've implemented into your business that you would have never thought of before until COVID hit? So this is open for anybody, and take it away.
I guess I'll start. So, I mean, I've done more. I mean, just the digital aspect, you've done more and more and more, where it's the digital walkthrough, the digital tours, the FaceTiming showings early on in COVID. But I think now that, I'm more interested to hear what everyone's, general feedback is of the market and traffic is in the last 1 month than necessarily the last, 4 or 5 months, just because I feel like the digital tools that we can have aren't really doing that much in relation to what we're going through in the last 3 weeks or so.
I think that's a great point. If I was going to answer that question before Pasquale, I would have said that I don't think that there's, or when you were saying like the digital stuff and doing the walkthroughs and all that stuff, and we've done a little bit of that as well, but I think if I'm drawing on some experience, it's from going through the recession of 06 to 2012 and then preparing sellers for what feels like is coming or is upon us. For me, that feels like the change that's been over the past 6 months, and maybe to the point that you were making about the last 1 month. Every conversation now is, should we do it now? Should we do it later? Should we stop trying to do it now? How bad do we think this is going to get? The short answer to that question for me is sharpening my skills, that I have to be able to get sellers sort of into the reality of what's happening in the market. Sometimes it's going great, by the way, but more often we're having challenges or it's not going exactly as people expected, and just getting myself sort of sharpened back up as an agent to go, you know, you need to connect with reality a little bit and finding the way to have that conversation better.
Yeah, I think for me, the communication I've had with my clients has been essential. And I have really seen my market just completely was gangbusters in June and July up until the middle of July, and then it kind of died, and now it's back up again. And I think that, you know, as soon as you put something out there, people get nervous if it doesn't sell right away because they keep hearing reports that things are selling so quickly. And you've got to be the voice of reason for your client, and you've got to put it out there at the right price and not gouge the market. You know, it seems to work when you do it right and you take the steps and you make the steps small steps, not jumps. Meaning that you test the market, you put it on TAN, you put it on the PLN, you do those things to make sure that what you're doing is accurately set for the marketplace.
I can't really speak to, you know, getting buyers and sellers during this time, but from my perspective, to answer the initial question, the market has been really, really busy. I want to say like the first week of August was one of the busiest weeks we had in terms of new contracts coming in. And then the 2 weeks since then have been, you know, still been really busy, more like an average spring market, but spring market nonetheless. So it's been, the end of July was more closings than we've had all year. You guys can probably relate to that. And then ton of new contracts following then. So I think the market is really busy right now, at least from our perspective.
Yeah, I think I've experienced a lot of what everyone has already kind of raised. I think for me, I've got a mixed bag. I think families, like anyone that I have that has a family, is pretty much, I'm also licensed in Michigan. I'm very busy in Michigan, and my other partner is licensed in Indiana. So we're trying to diversify, and I'm glad that we did that in retrospect. So families aren't, for my market, I'm not dealing with a ton of families trying to be in the city. I'm dealing with more empty nesters. Anyone with little kids is trying to leave the city as far as my market that we're serving, that I'm seeing. And so like everyone is kind of a mixed bag. Some of my co-ops, I'm like, you know, I don't know, we're trying to say, what is the absorption rate? Are people really doing that right now? So you've got some of these other properties that might not move as fast, like they're already kind of, you know, a certain set of the market. And then this is sort of compounding that. Doesn't mean that there isn't a market, but being strategic from all of our listings is hyper important. And I think now, if I'm in a listing appointment, I discourage sellers from selling if they are just trying to sell. Like, I'm finding the market has shifted, and my clients, I want to work with people who have lifestyle changes. This isn't the market to just see price it if you bought it 5 years ago because you think you want to move. Like, I don't really want to take that on. It's too uncertain, and I need to know that I can deliver. So it's important to be honest with myself and have humility. Like, the price is the price. Doesn't mean that I have a crystal ball, but I have to, my service to my clients is in my honesty and my humility. And I have to, in every single property is a little bit different. And so I think just really pausing and taking my time on that and really getting into what people's goals are right now is something that has always been the case, but I think it's critically more, it's more critical at this point, especially like COVID. Just there's a lot of social unrest in the neighborhood. There's so many things going on that are all kind of, there's a confluence of all these different external things going on that we can't control.
And I've been finding out right now over the last 60 days, the agents that are really stepping it up and actually having success versus the agents that are struggling are the ones that are providing value. The ones that are actually teaching and educating their buyers on exactly what's happening in this market, where the ones that are kind of still struggling are transaction-based, discount brokers, these types of things where you're actually not an expert and you're not helping. We all know interest rates are down, and it's not just about having a low rate. It's about teaching and helping and having years of experience, which everybody here does have, and not everybody does. So you guys can really, pat yourselves on the back, because there's a lot of agents out there right now that will be leaving this market, which is crazy for me. The market is really strong, but they don't have the skill set that you guys have. And so just continue to educate, be of value, and not worry about the money coming in. You'll continue to grow.
Yeah, on that, sorry. It's funny because I've had buyers, first time buyers, go and buy properties that were, huge for them, and they'd never owned anything. They have little kids, and they're either coming out of an apartment in like Lincoln Square, and they're going to Northbrook and, buying an $800,000 house for the first time, because they've been on top of each other and they need that space and they want a different type of lifestyle. And it is an education, because educating someone not coming from a small condo into a big home right away, or they don't have no homeowners experience, you have a lot of work to do with those people, and you want to do it right. It's so important to keep that client relationship strong and to really show them that you can be the guide and you are the expert in helping them find their home, no matter if it's in the city or if it's in the suburbs. And that goes for the same for a listing as well. Going from a 1,200 square foot condo to a home in the city with children, there's a big difference. And there's a lot of precarious things going on in the marketplace right now in our living situation.
Can everybody hear me?
Always meet in person. Obviously, you get a bunch of new leads. You want to meet in person for the first time. We did a lot of it digitally. So what we did differently was we really built out a process for our meetings online, for our initial meetings with buyers and sellers. It's been extremely efficient, actually, more than in way more convenient to schedule than I had in the past. It's worked out great. We're still leveraging and utilizing that versus in person. It's still working out. Obviously, there's different situations where we want to meet in person, and it's best to do so. But to that point, it also makes it really easy to pre-plan your meetings and have my InfoSpark set up and letting the data do the talking versus me flipping through and talking about why Second City agents more. We're really talking about the market and the data and putting all that information in their hands more than focusing on why us. I think giving them that information really helps them build the confidence that they need versus telling them all your stats, accreditations, et cetera. So we've been focusing heavily on that. With sellers, I've been coming in with 4 different pricing scenarios, letting them come to their own decisions. So we pull comps, yes, but then I've pre-drafted 4 different listings and then reverse prospected them in advance to show them how many matches on the MLS are popping up with different price points. So I have one coming up in 30 minutes at 305. They have 340 matches. At the 300 mark, they've got 440. So he's cutting out 25% of the market, quote unquote, through the MLS. So I've been letting that data help me get them down, or like, I forgot who it was that said it, but Phil, like having an honest conversation, and Maggie too, just so that I can set myself up for success and deliver too. But yeah, the data has been super helpful, especially showing them where the market's going, especially if inventory is just spiking.
Do you use Snapshot?
Yeah, I use that heavily. So now I'll do average price point. I'll do the absorption rate graph, market time graph. Those are the main 3 that I use.
Awesome.
I think what a terrific idea to do a draft at 4 different pricing scenarios and bring those numbers when you're doing pricing is, I will immediately steal that idea and start using it. That's really terrific. But I do think, I don't know, what I'm hearing from you guys, not to summarize all of it, but it sounds to me like, and Joel kind of touched on it, like once you have enough business and enough clientele, it's like we just have to kind of get better at walking people up the mountain if it's Everest, because I don't know, there isn't any marketing trick that solves a tricky market. And, you know, Maggie, you were saying, you know, that it's a mixed bag. I've been describing, you know, as a city agent for 17 years, I've been describing these sort of three layers. There's the Loop in River North and Streeterville downtown, and the people there seem to be acting a certain way. I want to move north. I want to move out. Although weirdly, I have some stuff on the Gold Coast where there's people coming in like as empty nesters, but that's neither here nor there. The middle is sort of the north side neighborhoods where my clients are going, yeah, I live in a $1.2 million house. It's beautiful now, but I want to go to Wilmette or Glenview or whatever. And then of course you have Wilmette and Glenview and Evanston and whatever. And they're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. It's like Woodstock here. Everyone's, you know, coming to get their yards. So, and then going back to what Joel said, I think when, you know, you have the opportunity to talk to a new client, I just agree so much that like anything that doesn't involve being an expert in your market as an agent is just bullshit window dressing. You know what I mean? Like knowing our market is really, and being able to educate our clients or help them navigate it. And pardon my French, but, and help them navigate it. I think like I'm kind of groaning about it because I go, I don't really feel like getting sharper right now, but it's like, I have to. Because that's what this, I think that's what this is going to be. I mean, we're 90 days from an election with waning consumer confidence anyway, unemployment at a crazy high. I mean, my first answer when somebody goes, why isn't my home selling? I go, well, let's take a step back. Unemployment's at 13%. There's looting 2 nights ago in Chicago. There's threats of federal forces. And I mean, all the politics aside, all those things chip away at the confidence that people are going to have, especially with experienced agents like us that we know aren't selling $50,000 starter homes. I mean, it's in some cases $2 million homes, and even $600,000 or $700,000 first homes or second homes are major investment purchases. So I know that's a long comment, but just I agree. I think bringing that expertise, and Eli, I love your idea of the 4 drafted listings or listing prices and bringing the stats on those is all good stuff. I think all of that kind of stuff is really what I'm curious to hear about mostly, because the conversations is where the magic happens as an agent. So anyway, sorry for the long comment.
Bill, that was a great line that you had. You should trademark it about there is no market trick to solve a tricky market.
Did I say that?
You just said that.
Oh, did I? I mean, totally. Yeah.
Did you just come up with that? Or did you say that?
I come up with all kinds of stuff all the time, but I don't know. I didn't even realize that I said that. But I mean.
Great line.
Okay. I'll take it. Thanks.
I'm putting it on a bumper sticker right now as we speak. So
Phil, you reminded me when you were talking. Sorry, Andy, did I just talk over you?
Oh no, I was saying I'm putting his comment on a bumper sticker right now to trademark it. I'm making a joke. Go ahead.
No, I think it's great. No, there was a bit of a delay.
To solve a tricky market.
Yeah, no, I thought your comments were really spot on. And one piece of advice that I got, and I started a podcast on this, like making sense of the market, and then COVID hit, and it was too hard to like kind of keep up. But one nugget of advice that I got from an awesome investor, how do you sell? And like, this was before COVID hit, but it had to do with kind of the tax environment where you kind of tax high-end real estate, then there's a cap, and then it just shifts, and then nothing appreciates and prices fall, and walking people through the economics of that, and then the false acceleration of new construction of why are prices so inflated here, and then the other product goes down, like just having those economic conversations. And how do you let go of your property when you think it should have appreciated or you've owned it and that stuff? And one nugget of advice that I tell my sellers, I mean, because I'm not necessarily setting any records. Some things are going, well, and we've set new record pricing, but others we've just have been on the market and we just have to deal with what we have to deal with. It's just about what your home brought to you. It's about consumption-based buying and selling at this point. So you have to think about it from an emotional perspective. It's all emotional, like, of course money matters, certainly. But taking a loss, whether it's 10 or 20, isn't necessarily going to break the bank with the people that I work with. It's an emotional thing where you think, I raised my family here, I was here. And it's like, one thing I talk to people I work with selling is you have to thank your home for what it gave you. You used it, you were happy, you either raised your family, you were here, you had 7 great years. Thank your home and buy well. It's not going to be a perfect package. but it doesn't mean that we lost. And so it's really reframing it. And it's really about getting real with thanking your home for what it gave you. You loved it. You fixed it the way that you wanted to fix it. The market may not like what you did.
And the money they saved while having it all those years
Right.
instead of renting.
Yeah. And it's really trying to just, it's like, it's the whole thing of, you have to just, it was an emotional space for you. It's going to be an emotional space at the end of the day for someone else within this, construct of a purchase price. But if you think about it in application and what it means and your space means, it's really about getting real with what that is. And so I don't know, Phil, something you said really kind of sparked that thought. And I thought, well, that was something that's really helped me talk to my clients about needing to let go of their place.
Right.
And I found that actually to be beneficial. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, that's a good point, because in your industry, unlike commercial, people aren't buying their homes just for investment purposes. If it can appreciate and you make some money, great. But that's not the main reason why people are buying or selling their homes. That's secondary. If you make money in the process, great. But the key is to have the great place to live at an affordable place for that time that they were there, and ultimately save money instead of renting for that time period. So, appreciating on a residential home it's more rare.
It's all about personal enjoyment and personal equity that you get from living there. And I agree with you 100%, Maggie. And I talk about that with my clients all the time because it is so important. And that transcends also into how we work with our clients and that client relationship that we build with them, because it's not just about that first buy or that first sell. You want to be there at the end, and you want to have that communication going, and you help them with their personal enjoyment by what you can bring to the table whenever they have questions, and then they can reach out and talk to you. Then they actually build that trust even more and more. And when they're ready to sell, they're going to listen to you even that much more because you've been there the whole time. And to me, that's really important. And that was one reason I got out of corporate America, was because I knew that real estate could provide me a different type of relationship with the clients and be there after the end of the day and stick with those people for a number of years. And it's been great.
And I think we'll have to actually use that more or less, just because I think if you bought in the last, let's say, 3 to 5 to 7 years, you actually may not have made any money. And so you may actually have to use that as a reasoning of why did you put me into this, and why is it not appreciated, and why is the market what it is? You may have to actually use that as one of the reasons why the value of the house is that you actually live there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that reality is the job right now, is exactly what you just said. Yeah. The ability to explain, not prove, but I mean, show, like I say, show the reality of what's happening. Everybody's going to push back on price, no matter what the market is, a little bit. There's always a feeling that everyone thinks our house is worth a little bit more. I mean, that's the job for us. The thing that's cut through with clients for me lately is expect your place to be worth 5% less 8 months from now. So that means if you own a $400,000 condo, it's $20,000. It's $20,000. If it's $1 million house or a $2 million house, I mean, do the math. But that'll usually get people to stop in their tracks and go, wait, what do you mean? And then you get to answer some questions. And I don't know, my pillars are all, not that I'm trying to scare anybody. I'm not. I'm just trying to go, no, let's try to really understand the reality of what's happening. We're about to have a very ugly election. We have 13% unemployment. COVID is still going on. These things are just beginning to affect our market in terms of price. One of my favorite things to have done this year so far is to look at month by month, sort of like, what did March look like versus March of last year? March, half of it was COVID and half of it wasn't. Well, it was down a little bit. April was obviously a disaster if you compare to last April. May was a disaster. But when you start to do June 1st to present day, it's up dramatically. But prices, if you look at the whole year, are up 3.5%, but transactions year to date over year to date last year are down. So we've had this really hot 2 months, but when you add the whole year together, we're down. We're down on a year.
course.
and unemployment, all these things. And so like, I'll say to a client, like, I just can't see how that doesn't find us in, I'm not saying do something or don't, but understand that I don't see how a year from now, it's not a little more challenging than it is right now.
Well, especially you should also tell them that, you know, the fact that the interest rates are so low.
Right.
You know, where's the market going to be in a year, plus where are the interest rates going to be? They're, you know, lowering the interest rates to keep it moving right now, but what's going to happen in a year if you have a different president, different market,
right?
You know, whatever, at least you have that to help the market right now. That's got to be a huge incentive for a seller. I'm closing so many deals every week right now. It's so busy. I can't even believe the interest rates that people are closing with right now.
Also a huge incentive for the buyer. I mean, you know, the buyer, if you think about it, 2 years ago when the interest rates were almost 5%, how much more was a buyer spending on purchasing a home? What was their purchasing power? And today their purchasing power, if they're making that same income today, is a heck of a lot more than it was 2 years ago. And that's huge because in 8 months from now, like you said, Phil, I'm not so sure it's going to be there. You know, and I talk about that all the time with my buyers and my sellers, because I do believe the market will change and there will be a bigger inventory out there. There's not going to be the buying power, especially with the unemployment rates. And we don't know how much more that's going to hit us.
And it doesn't mean that it's a disaster either. I'll always say that to a client. What I don't mean is that the forest is going to burn and we're all going to die. That is not what I mean. I just mean understand the market's going to move a little bit. And if you feel a little disappointed now, I get it. You might be a little more disappointed later. You know,
I mean, I also don't think the rates are going to change. I mean, Joel's on the call. What's your opinion on rates for next year? They're probably going to stay flat, I would think, right?
There are so many mortgage guys out there right now that are like selling fear, and they're saying you better hurry up and do something because rates are going to go up. And I'm in the exact opposite camp. I'm in the exact opposite. Right now, 30-year fixed rates are at 2.75. 15-year fixed rates are below 2.5. If they go up a little, it's fine, but we will not see 30-year fixed rates above 3.5 or 4. If they're in the low 3s or right around 3, we have 12 to 18 months of this. I'll give you a quote. The Federal Reserve, and they're the ones that are controlling anything under $510,000. The jumbo stuff's something completely different. But the feds are spending $40 billion a month to keep the mortgage rates low. And they said, we're not even thinking about raising rates anytime soon, end quote. They're going to continue to put money on this, and that's going to be the case for a while. So teach, educate, come from a point of helping. Anybody who's trying to sell somebody that rates are going to go up, it's, you know, you're just teach, help. Yeah.
Along that comment of teach, and something that's been scary to me that I could also use some advice on is there was a lot of talk at the beginning of all this COVID stuff in the first round of riots about people leaving the city. And I wake up yesterday to, and I don't mean this, I'm on the call with much more successful agents than I am, but 4 new listings. And I'm looking at all my current listings plus the new listings, and every single one of them are leaving the city, if not the state. Right. So one, it's great short term, but long term, it's less money. Maggie's in a good situation with the Indiana, Michigan connection, but some of my clients, most of them are trying to move to the northern suburbs. And, you know, I'm never going to lie to anybody. At the same time, I don't want to miss out on business. So I'm at a crossroads where I don't feel like I'm a market expert like I am in Chicago, where I'm super confident, strong, especially in the first time home buyer segment, at what price point should be in what neighborhood for every product type. But then going to Wilmette, I'll figure it out. And I think what Phil was saying was you got to resharpen your skills and remember how you learned all this information. The number one way is to actually go through the process and through the transaction. But I've been saying yes to every single showing request, trying to go on tours as a learning opportunity, even if they're not ready to buy yet. But again, I don't want to lead anyone down the wrong path, and I don't want to miss out on business at the same time. So I'm curious for you guys' recommendations on how you'd approach that.
I mean, I think you say yes to everything and figure it out. And if you don't know how to figure it out, you know, you find someone that, and then you offer them a referral fee to take your client. I mean, one aspect of that is if you don't know the neighborhood or the suburbs where they're going, somebody will pay your referral fee, and your client may appreciate that more on that aspect if you actually really don't know where the schools are. But if you actually do know, or you don't know the surroundings, then take it, and figure it out. Unless you really can't figure it out, then I do think you refer it out.
So I do feel like I could figure it out. I guess that's what I was looking for, is just a little bit of that confidence to just, I haven't been there in so long when I had to fake it early on that, I don't know, not used to it.
I have that same feeling, Eli, that I whine that I don't want to learn right now. I was saying it earlier. Like, I don't feel like sharpening my saw, but I agree. It's just, it's going to be a little bit of a war here in the next couple of years.
And I think on top of that, I think you're going to feel good if you figure it out, because one of my team members is looking at working with somebody and she doesn't know the area. And my advice to her was go drive out there, spend a day out there, look for all the schools, like Pasquale was saying, understand it, and you're going to feel more confident. And, it's all about spending some time in the neighborhoods and the areas, and go through the little areas and look at the different homes. Go to some of the open houses just yourself and see what they are, what's offered out there, and for what price point and what school district.
I take my wife, but then she's going to want to buy something expensive.
That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But I do think the shift in the market, at least in, I think, city high rise, the last day or two, I think more and more of it, the rioting and the looting and all that has actually had more of a negative effect of people second guessing themselves than it did early on in the season, where I think, even the Cranes article, I don't know if you guys saw the Cranes article that came out today. It was nasty, that talked about how slow the market was. I think Jenny Ames just quoted into it about how bad the market is. I mean, that was not that great of a helpful of an article going into the market today, but the article today in Cranes was not great for us. But I think people are second guessing it.
I think any agent, any seasoned agent, whatever, seasoned meaning like still here, I'm always in situations where I don't know what I'm doing. I never feel like I'm ever in the exact same transaction twice. I may know a building a little bit better because I've sold more there, but every transaction is new. And I think the thing that I think it's a personality type with just agents or people I know, like sort of being comfortable in that risk-taking role. And we're just kind of natural leaders. I think all of us can feel that way. And so there's an ability to lead and guide your client, but you never have to know what you're doing. It's always okay to learn. You can ask somebody. And I think it's good to always be out of your comfort zone. And I agree with Phil, I don't feel like it right now. But I kind of have to be. And so one little nugget of COVID that I've taken with me that has changed me, I think, going forward forever, and how I do my business is that no matter what, there's an hour or two in my schedule where I'm concentrating on whatever it is I need to do to get into my headspace. So whether that's going for a run, I like to meditate. I'm not saying that this is going to work for everybody, but whether it's writing my goals down, there's a carved time out that I will never let go of. And I've been busier than I've ever been before. And I just think being able to find that space, that's just a permanent paradigm change into how I operate. Because before it was just 24 hours. I was second, like the last person. And I kind of felt like I was always running behind, and I find myself to be more efficient. But I'm just saying there's always, there's always ways that we're trying to figure out how to learn, but not knowing is, I mean, people may be experts if they're in this 20, 30 years, but it's just, we're all trying to figure it out. So it doesn't matter if you don't know, you can figure it out. But I agree with Pasquale. Like if there's somebody with kids in a school district and something really important you don't know, you'll find that out, or you'll bring someone in and you can go to the showings, but that other person's the lead agent. But there's no reason that you're inferior otherwise because you don't have that information.
I'm kind of excited. I've always wanted to go learn the North Shore. This is kind of making me do it, which I'm happy about, Anyways, thank you.
And I mean, sometimes I do this to calm myself down is I'll go, no, wait, not literally everyone's moving out of Chicago. That's ridiculous. And I'll do some kind of brain trick to remind myself that it's not possible for literally everyone to leave. It does, Eli, to your point though, it does feel like every day I get another call from somebody going, we just want to, we just want to leave the city. Try something else. And I'm like, okay, great. So.
Yeah, and another thing too, I like little nuggets of advice, so I'll stop with this, but like tricks that work for me. So this is just things I tell myself. This isn't like permanent, right? So we're in a really unprecedented time. So I try and think of like not making permanent decisions based on this really surreal environment. I mean, I think that there'll be fallout certainly that we'll have to deal with, but this is not like our norm. At some point we have to deal with it, but it's, there will be at some point a vaccine, and I'm thinking 2021, like we will get through this. Of course, no one knows how, what, when, where. I mean, there's more uncertainty ahead of us, particularly with the election. Phil, you've mentioned that, like coming up. But this isn't forever. This is like somewhere, even when their first looting happened, COVID, people started rebounding. We got set back, at least in this area, with the second round of looting, because you're just like, well, where does this go now? But like people are resilient, so, and I think Chicagoans are super resilient. So it's just, I always have to tell my clients to remind them, like, nobody needs to make permanent decisions right now in an uncertain environment. In fact, let's just hang tight with being uncomfortable for a second and maybe not do anything. So it's not going to last forever, whatever's going on.
I think the other thing that we need to take away from in the city as city agents is the city and what it still is offering us. One of the most interesting things that's happened, and I know you guys all know about this, is all the alfresco dining into the streets and the energy it's creating within the neighborhoods and the people that you're seeing there. And I try to take advantage of it. I'm in Roscoe Village, and I go to my restaurants here and just try to, mix in with people and talk to people. But that's something unique. It's something that the suburbs don't necessarily have, like the city does. There's still a lot to love about this city, and I still think that we have a unique character that people still love, and it will pass. I mean, the looting will pass. The COVID will pass with the vaccine. And we're gonna, in 2 years, we're gonna all look back and we're gonna say, wow, did that really happen? I think that we're gonna still have a lot of activity, and we're still gonna be a great city. And there's still going to be a tremendous amount of real estate business to be had. And we need to take advantage of our city and spread the word. I mean, I try to, in a newsletter I do every month to my clients, I do a video. I'll talk about people bike riding on the paths, and I'll go to one of the paths, the 606 or the 312, and I'll stand right there and talk about bikers as they're going by and what it's done for the city and what people are doing and going outside and taking part. They're not spending a lot of money, but they're still taking part. And then I'll go maybe to one of the alfresco cafes and do a video there and show that, so I can create that energy for people that are my clients and sphere of influence or what have you, because I think it's so important to continue to push the envelope and to promote the city for what it is and how great it is.
I just think people need to go back to work. I think once that happens and once the business actually opens and people go back to their offices, which I think people will go back to their offices, it forces people to get back into the city, just because I know a lot of people that can work from anywhere right now because they don't have to be in the city, and they're choosing not to be in their condo in the city. They're choosing to be somewhere on a lake that they can kind of be and check in and not have to actually be downtown. And so I think once that all comes into place, I think the rest does fall back into place and people are back to work.
The storms are a bigger problem for me than COVID right now. You guys been dealing with any storm issues?
Where are you, Adam? Are you in the city or are you out of the city?
Well, I'm out of the city, but I'm dealing with clients that are closing properties in the city. I had a client in a closing yesterday buying $1 million unit in a 3-flat building in Lincoln Park, and a tree fell on the building in the middle of the closing.
Oh, wow.
And this morning I got 2 calls from sellers who experienced a similar thing, and they're in the process of making a claim, figuring out what to do in the middle of a transaction that hasn't closed yet.
I have that. I have a tree that fell on a house I'm under contract on, which is, my client was like, so what do you think we should do with the thing and the thing? And I was like, hey, bro, I've never had a tree fall on the house, so don't know. Let's get the attorneys involved, It's a little tough to figure out.
Yep, I had a tree go through a third floor window. We close in 7 days. Like we won't get a new window obviously by then, but we'll have to figure it out. But I'm letting the attorneys, talk it through versus me calling the other agent first to let them know there's a tree in the window.
Yeah,
That's why
that's
Adam's
smart.
so
I would
great.
just tell them to notify their attorney and rely on.
Yeah, Adam, aren't you happy to hear that?
Yeah.
Hey, at least you know it's coming, right, Adam? At least it's not a curve. At least you know the curveball's coming, right?
Yeah.
I do like, I'm sure you guys are like this too. I do like when I can collect a new crazy thing. Tree fell on house I'm under contract on. I was like, I'd like adding this to my weird list,
Well,
Bingo.
how about in the middle of literally the middle of the closing?
That's wild.
I hung up with my client. We were done with the loan documents. I thought we were closed. And like 2 hours later, he calls me back. There was some issue with the loan. There was some issue with the seller getting their documents together. So they were still at the title company. And in that window of like when we closed, but still weren't closed because their seller was still wrapping it up, this happened.
Ugh.
So you get into actually like an important legal issue of like, whose problem is it? If we closed, it's the buyer's property and whatever. So we had to start talking about like, what time did this tree fall on the property?
Oof.
Wow.
What minute of what hour?
Adam, what side of the contract were you on?
Buyer.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a guaranteed rate loan, by the way.
Nice. Okay, good. Well, then
Michael Banks.
we love Mike. So that's really cool that if it happened prior to, we want to make sure that we get a credit. And the point is everything is solvable. When you have somebody like you that knows it, this isn't something that's life or death, thank God.
Yeah.
And we were able to actually find a solution. And so
Yeah,
like
so
Phil says, it's
luckily,
neat
it
to
really
be able to
didn't cause
check
too
it
much
off your
damage.
box.
All the damage was to the exterior, and luckily the seller just right off the bat just took responsibility. They just said, we already filed a claim with our insurance company. The insurance company's probably going to get reimbursed from the city because the city could, have some liability with respect to that. And we can, we agree to repair all the damage and it'll be covered by insurance and your client will be fine. And I'm working on it literally as we speak.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Joel, are there any lending issues from yesterday where you're seeing where people are having to reappraise or send somebody out for a second eye to make sure the house isn't damaged?
Right now, it's not a FEMA issue, so it won't come across the board as a reinspection. Sometimes counties get listed, and so at that point in time, it would have to go across the board. So this is a case-by-case scenario. The lending part doesn't matter, really, because no buyer is going to close if there's that issue. But in certain situations, like I'm licensed in Michigan, Florida, et cetera, there are certain times where there are county disaster areas, and they must send that appraiser back out to take the photos. Yesterday's storm thankfully didn't affect it to that level.
Thanks.
We're 10 minutes up, so I'm curious if I don't want to just ask a question to ask a question, but when I sent out kind of the preparatory email for everybody, we have some great minds on this Zoom, so with the exception of mine. So does anybody have, I try to say that with a straight face, I could not. Does anybody have any questions for just each other that they've wanted to know? So, and before we do that, I'm gonna have everybody smile. Hold on. This is for the thumbnail on the YouTube. No pressure. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, Eli was like flexing there or something.
I got nothing.
We gotta do another. I've actually done these and I forgot to smile myself, so we're gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. All right. But yeah, just, open forum. I got a hard stop at like 3:07, so I don't mind if it goes a little bit over, but yeah, Eli, go ahead.
Question. Okay. So since I went full-time, business has gone up a good amount, but nothing crazy. My question is to those that have been at that level for a more maintained timeline is, I'm hiring a full-time assistant, which I had a bit ago. He's already been trained up on stuff. He was been part-time. How do you handle scheduling? Like, what do you use? How do you track it? We've got multiple agents on the team now. Is there a software? Do you have a specific scheduler full-time? What do they cost? Like, any insight you could give me would be great.
What are you scheduling? Like, what do you mean?
Showing. So like buyer tours was one. And then on the list side, I've been fielding every single request myself. because I don't even know how to give it to somebody to then use my calendar to then, like just, I don't know what everyone does.
I mean, I can give an answer. I don't know if I understand it well enough, but so tell me if I'm on the right track. But you said you have a full-time assistant, right?
I do. Now, what I guess what I was getting at is before, when he was just doing transaction by transaction, the scope of work was way less. It was like contract to close, and then on the buy side, it was all of the buyer tours just for me, but not for the rest of the team. Now that he's coming on board, there's a little bit more marketing involved. There's a little bit, post-transaction client touch. There's more things I need him to do. So I don't know. One is like when it gets to, is there like a certain number of showings that where maybe you bring on a full-time scheduler? If so, what's the cost? If not, you've got your own one admin. How do you set up your showing time? And is that all you use? Do you have others? Do they have access to your calendar? I mean, when an inbound call comes in, do they call you right away and go, hey, there's a request for this time and this date at this listing? How does it? I
don't know if anybody else is, I have a couple things that sort of pop in my head as you ask those questions. Obviously the expectation setting of what you want the person to do in the role is primary. I remember I got made fun of this at one point, giving a presentation on my least favorite thing in the world is email. And so whenever I either have to have somebody work for me or hire a new assistant, which actually I'm in the process of doing myself now too, I usually just say everything's in my email, literally everything. And then I think the tough thing, Eli, and I don't know if this is what you meant, so forgive me if it's not, but we all know it's tough letting go. In this business especially, we know we're good with our clients and it's scary to let go. But I always start with, I don't want to manage my calendar. I don't want to manage my email and every little issue that comes in. And actually, this happened to me today. Somebody that works on my team was like, well, what if they can't do it at that time? And I was like, well, what would you do next? Right. And then it's like, oh, that's right. Call the client. Right. And then it's just like pushing them to solve the problems, and I give my assistants, I give full access to my email and full access to my calendar and say, this has literally happened before. Because something was on my calendar, I went and I had an assistant go, no, that was for the other guy. And I go, I know, but I'm so dumb you put it on my calendar. I try to let them know that I'm dumb and you control it. And that's usually worked out well for me. I don't know if that exactly answers the question that you had.
So let's back it up a step. If a showing request comes in, it goes to your emails, what you're saying, because they have access to your email, they can then run points.
Well, or showing time. We give them, on our team, we use Dashlane, which is a password manager, and I'll just share the passwords. So here's my password to showing time. They have their own Dashlane account, so we're not emailing passwords back and forth or whatever. And then I go, yeah, it's your responsibility. When showings come in, there's me, there's Joe. Figure out whose calendar it goes on. You have access to everybody's calendar. Oh, yeah, Joe on Thursday's got these times or it's stacked up. Yep, boom. And then we don't need to be involved. This is a grouchy, a little bit seasoned, jaded agent talking, right? Like, please don't involve me in, we need to show this on Thursday. I don't need to be involved. Let's get it on the schedule and make it happen, And that, Eli, I'll say, I don't mean to be flip about it. There was growth that I had to do. There's still growth that sometimes I need to do to set that expectation clearly and just go here. And it takes, for me, it took a little practice to let go of that kind of stuff and the details, but the push made it so that I don't spend as much time staring at a computer, which I like a lot too. So,
Eli, also, one thing I found having assistants over the years, I'm responsible for the communication. So if there's something somebody doesn't understand, it's because I didn't explain it. And that has been a learning curve because I would, of course, just love somebody to intuitively understand how to do what I want them to do without having to explain it. It just doesn't work that way. I think my question to you, is this person your primary assistant or is it the team's assistant? Because then it really matters. Are they your assistant or your team's assistant?
They're going to be like 85% me, 15 team.
Okay. I think finding out what things you don't like to do that you find are inefficient would be the first thing I would delegate, that you are comfortable delegating. And then also, I think Phil touched on this, you kind of got to let it go. They're not going to do it perfectly, but that's part of expanding you can't be a one person empire. You're going to have to deploy and trust in other people, and they're going to screw up at times. And so that just has to be okay. And then you have to, figure out systems. So I am a huge believer in systems. I'm also like Phil, I don't want to deal with my calendar. If I put it on there, like if somebody calls me, I've already forgotten about it. So it's like really important that I'm not the point person for like scheduling, because I will write it down in a scrap paper that's now buried in my purse. Like I totally will forget it. So, and I just don't like having that information in my head. So I think you have to ask yourself that person is your responsibility, and you are responsible it will take away from other things you want to do at first, but I think it's worth it in the long run. You have to set that up. And if they're not doing a good job, get rid of them sooner rather than later. I would suggest like a licensed assistant who's trying to make money, just because you've got less liability.
You know that through the Compass system, they can mimic you. They can mimic you.
Yeah, that's been huge.
Calendar, and that's huge. And that's what my assistant does all the time. And my personal assistant does all of my listings. I just have her take care of everything in SkySlope. She does it all. And, it's a huge help, because that's my biggest thing. I hate the detail work.
Actually,
you know
who the assistant is? It's Percy. Percy, the Bucktown office manager.
Oh, okay.
Thank you guys for letting me take that space of time up there. I appreciate the insight. I really do.
This is why we're here. It's why we do these, man. Thanks for asking it.
Yeah, thanks for all this, you guys. Sometimes you go like, all right, we'll do this call, see what happens. But like, I really wrote down 3 or 4 things. So I loved hearing from everyone today. Thank you. I got a lot out of this.
Likewise.
So did I. Thank you very much. Andy, thank you for the honor.
Yeah, that is the goal. So I'll send the link out if anybody wants to revisit it. Also, if you guys are interested in doing another one of these, not that we don't like the people that are on here, but we can shuffle the deck, because it's always good to kind of pick other people's brains, as long as you leave enough brain for them. So if that is something you're interested in doing, just text me, email me. We'll probably do another one of these, maybe end of the month, September-ish, get some different agents on. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Appreciate it. And
thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Andy.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
We'll chat
Good to
soon.
see you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Peace.